Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 5 of the Big Boys Pod. Coming at you on the beautiful October 8th. I'm Trevor here alongside my co-host, Coach Cole. Coach Cole, how you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. We had a good week of games this past week. Actually, a pretty big week in college football. We saw five of the top 11 teams get upset.
Mm-hmm.
We saw goalpost end up in a river.
Yup,
So you know it was a good weekend. And the Big Ten was involved in some of the action.
they were. We'll get into that. You look ready to go. I saw that pen in your hand there. We
Oh, that's just the new, I'm not trying to do free, like they need free advertising anyways. It's just my Apple Pencil right
uh
here.
I thought
That's all.
maybe I
That's
thought
all.
maybe we get some Chris Collinsworth, John Gruden, Spider X, 2Y Banana. Breaking down some plays this
Not
week.
yet.
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Pretty soon here, if we want, I can bring the board up and we can do some Coach Cole's play of the week
Let's
or something. I'm all for it.
get into the X's and O's a little bit. I like it. But yeah,
All right, but
let's get right into it, right?
let's do
Uh,
it. Let's do it.
Friday night.
Friday night game.
Yeah, you
Yep.
want to start this one?
Sure. I mean, we've always been big Friday night guys. I think this week wasn't as exciting as the past 2 weeks.
Hmm.
Nevertheless, still a decent game to turn on if you had nothing to do. We're talking about Michigan State going out to play at Oregon for that stomp out cancer game.
Hmm.
Um, Trevor, you said quack quack on the social media, and the final score being 31-10. I do believe the Ducks were quack quacking all
They
night.
were.
What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. They were. And those stop out cancer uniforms, you mentioned those last week. I didn't really like them that much. I don't know. On the field,
Okay.
like I caught a lot of the game in the first half before the sun
Sure.
fully went down, and
Yep.
they did look a little better once it got dark and they're under the lights. But in like that late afternoon, kind of like 5, 6 o'clock, kind of dusk, they looked kind of weird. I don't know. Not the best uniforms out of Oregon for a good cause, so that part's cool. But enough
Sure.
about the
Sure. But
uniforms.
yeah, they might have missed. They might have missed on the execution.
Yeah, enough about the
Okay.
uniforms. Into the game. Like I said, watched a lot of that first half, and a lot of first half turnovers for
Mhm.
Oregon. Dylan Gabriel, 2 interceptions in the red zone, and kind of let Oregon kind of delay some of their scoring they got into. 31-10, so the points came on, but driving down in the first quarter and getting picked off twice really kind of affects the early part of that game. But they turned it on and convincing win at the end of the day. And outside of those 2 picks, a good performance from Dylan Gabriel, and solid day all around for him, taking care of work as they should do.
Yeah. I mean, routine win. I think both of us had the Ducks
Hmm.
in this game, and they took care of business, no problem. Uh, I really want to see Michigan State get some wins at some point,
Hmm.
but we'll talk a little bit more, I guess, into that later in this game. Excuse me. I think that was probably a little bit slower of a Friday night game, like you said. Took a little bit to get some of that offense going and complete those scoring drives. But
Hmm.
regardless, Oregon's good. Oregon's got a really fun game this week. We'll get into later for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Uh, but that's really all I have on Friday night.
Yeah. Still up 21-0 at half. If those picks didn't happen, this might have been 35-0 at half and looked a lot worse than it was.
Oh,
So
definitely,
good for Michigan
totally,
State to
totally.
hang in there. The one kind of shout out, not big boy this week, but Aiden Childs, their quarterback. We've talked about him on the program before.
Yep,
Um,
yep. Childs.
10 for 17, 154 yards, no touchdowns, but just a solid performance for a young quarterback. And I think the pieces are there. And he's a young guy that maybe 2 years from now we're talking about them being a contender in the Big Ten. But
Sure.
good test for him, and pieces aren't quite there yet. So with that one, we'll move on to Saturday morning and the big noon game on Saturday morning there. If you want to lead us off with this one, Penn State and UCLA.
Yeah, we're talking Penn State. So UCLA going out to Penn State. Final score being uh, 11-27. Halftime score was 3-14.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State. Once again, we're just seeing really good work, especially from that defensive edge and those defensive linemen. They just kind of control UCLA's offense.
Mm-hmm.
And they control any offense that kind of comes in and plays against them. So it seems like they kind of set the tempo of the game, and then it sets up guys like Drew Aller and all his weapons to kind of go and play at their own pace.
Yep.
So Penn State, man, they're slowly creeping into maybe that 2 spot in the back of my head in the conference right now.
Hmm.
I thought maybe Oregon was there, but like Penn State this week looked really good. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think you said something there, and I was like, oh, that's exactly it. Just letting Drew Aller and his weapons take care of work, kind of at their own pace.
Yeah.
I think this was not a flashy win, and none of their wins really this year have been flashy. They just take care of business in a
Totally.
really Big Ten type of style.
Yeah.
That score is honestly a little deceptive. That 8 of UCLA's points came late in the fourth quarter. There, kind of a garbage time touchdown. Otherwise, it's a
Right.
27-3 game. And this is a game UCLA owned the time of possession. They had 34 minutes with the ball compared to 26 from Penn State. Despite that, though, I mean, it doesn't matter for Penn State. That defense is on the field, but they're just wearing you down and kind of demoralizing an offense that still put up 260 yards. So they'll let you get some. It's a bit of a bend, don't break in a way, and it worked out for them. And when they got the ball, just control the tempo, control the pace when they have it, and put some points on the board. You don't need to throw up 50 points, but 27-11 is the same as 77-3. So a win on the board for them.
Yep. No, you're right. And something interesting was there were no like turnovers really this game
Mm-hmm.
on like the offensive side or anything. So it did feel kind of like a classic Big Ten football game. Just you felt every play, second ticked off that clock. But at the end of the day, Penn State's now 5-0.
Yeah.
UCLA 0-3 in the conference. Trevor, do you think they turn it around, or is it just going to be a tough year for UCLA?
I think going into this year, everybody kind of expected it to be tough sledding for them. New head coach. Didn't have the best year last year. Had some expectations going into last year and kind of just fell into that. I think I ended up with 8 regular season wins. So not a bad year by any means, but then lost a lot, and then coming into new conference is never going to be easy for you. I think they'll find their
Totally.
win at some point. This weekend, we'll get into their game. This weekend seems like one of their better opportunities for that, maybe. Not sure what the back half of their schedule looks like, but the wins will come.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I'm interested to talk about that game because I might be going the opposite way on that. But do you have anything else about this game, or can we talk into kind of another walloping?
No, lead us off.
Okay. Well, I hate to have to do this, but Purdue only scored 6, and Wisconsin put on 52 points. So a commanding win up at Camp Randall Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know what to say about Purdue. I can't wait for Purdue basketball to start, to be honest, and them have kind of their time to shine.
Yeah,
But it's just a really tough year on the gridiron for the Boilermakers. And they're feeling every single game they play right now. And now they're 0-2 in the conference, and they're probably going to be having a really tough year. I don't think they're going to be bowl eligible this year. I think it's going to be kind of a rinse this year out and figure out how we can restart.
yeah, I agree with you. The only word I put on my notes here was yikes. Just
Yeah.
they got throttled by Notre Dame a few weeks ago. We talked about that one.
Uh-huh.
Get blown out in this one, 52-6. Yikes is kind of the only word you can go with. And going into the year, they were projected to finish in the bottom 3 of the Big Ten. Kind of all the outlets were picking that, and so it's a big conference, bottom 3. I mean, you're down there. And when we came into the year, some of our earlier episodes, it's like we're doing this show. We love the Big Ten, and we want to see all these teams succeed. So it's just tough when you see one of these teams that's like they're at the bottom. There's no way around it.
Well, and someone like that's just how it goes. Someone's going to
Yeah.
be at the top, someone's going to be at the bottom, and this is what Purdue just ends up being there. I mean, they had they got 2 interceptions. Like they're not incompetent by any
No.
means. We're not calling them incompetent, but Wisconsin had 589 total yards of offense, literally almost 600 total yards of offense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do I have to say anything else?
Right. No, I agree with you.
So.
Couldn't stop the leaking that defense, and the points came out for Wisconsin. With that, I did want to give a special shout out, big boy of the week for me, Wisconsin wide
Okay,
receiver
here we go.
Trech Kekauna, redshirt freshman, only made a couple appearances last year, and then was hurt late last year.
Okay.
Coming into this game, he only had 4 catches on the year for 42 yards, and then had a breakout game. 6 catches, 134 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 69-yard touchdown. That kind of was one of the daggers for Wisconsin in this game. Part of the reason I want to shout him out is he was a recruit they were really excited about last year. 2023 recruit, 3-star guy, Bishop Gorman, speedy wide receiver that they were really excited about to kind of build that air raid team that we've talked about a lot.
Gorman?
The Bishop Gorman, yeah. He's from Honolulu, played at St. Louis High down there. I looked into his background a little bit. St. Louis High, I believe that's where Mariota went back in the day. Really good football team out of Honolulu. And then came to the mainland, Bishop Gorman. They just turn out recruits left and right.
BG, baby.
Yeah, and he was one of them, and he was a standout on a team like that. And, if you want to build an air raid team, you need guys like this, guys that are just going to blow the doors off of defensive backs, and he proved that on Saturday. And, tripled his career yardage at Wisconsin, 2 touchdowns for a redshirt freshman. He'll be there for a few years. I think it's a big confidence boost for that team. We mentioned last week, hopefully, if you're a Wisconsin fan, you maybe looked at this game as a momentum turner for them, and you see a young guy like that playing like that, you get your hopes up for the rest of the year, and maybe Luke Fickle figuring something out there. So shout out to Trech Kekauna. See how the rest of the year goes for him.
Awesome. Yeah, no, big shout out for him. I will say really quick, I know I was kind of calling the upset. I wanted Purdue to just sneak this one out. And obviously that bug got squashed. But another game that really felt like it never got started, or more so, it got started, but maybe they didn't get off the bus. Ohio State, Iowa, and we got plenty to say here. I do kind of want to start off though. You just gave your flowers. I mean, Amike Egbuka. And I hope I'm saying that right. If not, I apologize. Okay. I mean, the boy went off, dude. He had 3 touchdowns. He had 9 receptions for 71 yards, but 3 touchdowns. I mean, that catch that Smith had, that obviously, that's a poster picture. Put that all over the place. But the options across the field for Howard to go to work, it just goes and shows, right? And only having 71 yards, but the 3 touchdowns, right? He's efficient and he's getting it done. So he got the first touchdown. He got things started in that first quarter, and really Ohio State never looked back.
Yeah, I mean, talk about only 71 yards, but 3 touchdowns. I mean, having a red zone option like that is huge. And that guy that you can, it'll just moss guys in the end zone. He didn't have one like that necessarily, but you see what I'm getting at, kind of where sure. What's that meme with I forget the NFL meme. It's like, oh, he's down there somewhere. It's like, Will Howard just like, Amika's down there. I'll just throw it. He's going to come down with it. It's huge for your offense to rely on. So good shout out there. I mean, he's looking like a star. He was the last few years, and just next in that line of Ohio State wide receivers we've seen the last 10 years or so here.
Are they wide receiver university right now at this point?
It might be them or LSU. Alabama's had their share. I mean,
LSU is a really good one too.
Yeah,
they're always going to have a point to say, so that's fair.
Yeah, but they're up there, top 3 for sure.
Totally.
On to the game.
But about
like you said, I mean, Ohio State didn't really look back once they got it going. I did want to mention with this game, for Iowa at least, a tale of 2 halves again. Which I think I've mentioned with a few of their games earlier this season, where it seems like they're one team in one half and a completely different team in the next.
Sure.
I was at a little watch party with some friends of mine. We were watching the game, 7-0 at halftime. And I was like, as a joke, I'm like, well, if that was our good half, let's see what the second half is in store. And not even 5 minutes of that third quarter, one of my buddies looked at me. He's like, why'd you have to say that? Because it was wheels were falling off quick. But I mean, Iowa 2 turnovers that they forced in the first half and held it to 7-0, and then McNamara had 3 turnovers by himself in the second half there and got benched, which sucks for him, and he's QB1,
Yeah.
and as Iowa fans, definitely support him and want him to play his best. But I think we were really excited to see what Brendan Sullivan can do, and that's the drive they scored a touchdown. So yeah, I mean, tough loss for Iowa. Didn't really expect him to win, but line was 23. It opened up at, ended at 17.5. So a lot of felt like maybe it could be a bit of a game, and it just wasn't. So, you have any thoughts on that one?
No, I do want to say it was tough to see Cade pulled. I do for anyone a game 35-7. Like it could have been Iowa, it could have been Illinois, could have been whoever this week, right? Ohio State's a wagon. We keep talking about it. Ryan Day did talk post game and said like credit where credit's due. Like Iowa defense forced them to be really good in the red zone, I think I have to agree with that. Like I know they scored 35, but man, like we look good. We look like we make them make good plays. And I think there's a lot to look forward to still. And maybe the best is still yet to come for Iowa Hawkeyes football this season. So that's what I'm keeping my hopes up for. But Ohio State's got a really fun game coming up here too that we'll talk about in the preview.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the really fun one. Yeah, I didn't see that from Ryan Day, but for my closing thoughts, I mean, I gotta agree that defense played really well for the cards they were dealt playing against a team like Ohio State. 412 yards that Ohio State had, which obviously is a lot, but we've seen what that team could do, lighten up the scoreboard. So props where they're due there for Iowa. And for their offense, 226 yards. So even though Cade got benched, 226 yards for that offense where they were a year ago, and versus a team like Ohio State and the defensive talent they have is also a huge step up. So it's not all negative in Iowa City. Even though the score is 35-7, there's steps being made. We'll get into their game this week, and like you said, going forward, the schedule's a little bit favorable for them. I think they're still hoping for an 8-win, 9-win, maybe win out, get 10 wins again this year. We'll see. With that, moving to
anything can happen.
Oh yeah, anything can happen. Moving to the next one here, had Indiana going on the road to Northwestern. You were hyping up that stadium again last week on the lakefront there.
I don't know if hyping it up is the right word, but I did talk about it.
It's a very unique atmosphere, and I don't know if the wind was whipping on Saturday there in Evanston. It definitely can coming off the lake, and even if the wind was whipping, it was no match for Curtis Rourke, whose balls were smooth sailing through the air. Put up 380 yards again, 3 touchdowns, no picks, 25 for 33, so he's making his completions too. And this team is 6-0 after a 41-27 win. First time since 1967. I saw 1967, won the Big Ten, went to the Rose Bowl that year. So long time coming, almost 50 years for Indiana to be off to a start like this.
Wow, that's really cool, actually.
Yeah, definitely a special year there in Bloomington. What are your thoughts on this one?
No, I was gonna say it's got to be awesome to be in Bloomington right now. I'm sure. I mean, 6-0 has to feel so good, especially when you're a team where really no one that would have ever thought this was going to happen. To be honest, I did see the Big Ten gave co-offensive player of the week to Egbuka and our guy Curtis Rourke. So like, he's getting his own big boys of the weeks out there too. We could have given it to him.
I thought the same thing. Really. It's like we can't give it to him 3 times. Spread the love.
And more so, it's time for us just to start putting some respect on Indiana. I think they're like a top 15 team, dude. Like it's time for them to shoot up the AP poll. I want to see it happen. I really want them to go 7-0, but it's really crazy that they're one of the first teams to be bowl eligible. So good for Indiana, good for the Hoosiers. Shout out Curtis Rourke. His draft stock has only gone up this year. So it would be really cool to see him go pro. But man, he is turning into a Bloomington legend.
Yeah, absolutely. Very fun. Like you said, nobody expected this from him. They win, and Coach Signetti there. Google me, I win, and he just does. He talked about after the game.
They should be making shirts that say that.
Yeah,
with his
absolutely.
Face.
He said after the game, and this is coaches that win. This is how they talk about games like this, where you win 41-27, win by 2 scores, you're 6-0, and he goes, they tested us, and they did. I mean, Northwestern really hung in this game for a while.
Sure.
And he goes,
It was
they
17-10 and a half.
yeah, exactly. And he's like, he said something like, we haven't had a game that's been back and forth like this yet this year. So it's a really great test for our guys. The games are only going to get tougher from here. And just, not resting on his laurels. 6-0 is 6 wins short of where he wants to be, I think. A guy like that, Google me, I win. He wants to go 12-0 and be in Indy, be in the playoff this year. And they look the part. I'm with you. They look like a top 15 team. The offense is something special for them right now. So they get the week off this weekend. So unfortunately, this is all we got for Indiana this show. But 2 weeks from now is the game I called out a few weeks ago. They'll be going to Memorial Stadium in Lincoln 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And that will be a fun one, I think. So we'll talk about Nebraska later and how they're looking this year. But anything else on this one? Otherwise, we'll talk about Nebraska next, maybe.
No, yeah, let's bump on over to Nebraska. Why
Sure.
not? Actually, I think we were talking about this game being a little bit more of like a gunslinger and turned into a little bit more of a classic Big Ten game. Final score: Rutgers 7, Nebraska 14. But Nebraska was up 14-0 at half, and I felt like when I was watching this game that the Nebraska offense was clicking, and Raiola had some pretty good looks. I think what impressed me a little bit more was actually the Nebraska defense for the first time. I was just really watching them. Kind of some of the hurry pressure they put on Indiana and Indiana's QB. He still had a good day. I can never say his name right, but he went for yeah. I mean, like, but they did kind of put the press on him, to be honest, and we could see that, and they kept Monangai to under 80 yards. So I was impressed by both those things. But yeah, very classic Big Ten type game.
Yeah. You expect with some of these Big Ten games that have those 14-7 score lines that it's, 20 degrees and snowing and all that. This game was 97 degrees at kickoff in Lincoln. A hot one.
Okay.
An absolute scorcher. So you don't ever know what you're going to get with the Big Ten. And it seemed like the weather kind of played a part of this. Greg Schiano, Rutgers head coach, was talking about it where he was like, you don't prepare for games like these really in the Big Ten. And it looked like it got to Rutgers a little bit. Even Nebraska. I mean, it wasn't a great day for Dylan Raiola. He had a quote post game where he's like, I know it wasn't the best game for me, but we got the win, and that's what counts. Threw a pick on the day, didn't have a touchdown. Their running game really got him where they needed to be. And a classic Big Ten slugfest, I think is what you called it, and that's exactly what it was. 525 yards combined between two teams. So just pounding it out for an hour. And Nebraska came away with this one. And they're 5-1 on the year. So, even though that tough loss to Illinois a couple weeks ago, they're still a team that's in it for sure. And if they can win out from here, or even if they drop one or two, that's a team that could be on the outside looking in, bubble team for the playoff, if not in Indy.
Definitely.
Maybe locking up their spot. So a lot of season left for them. Anything else with this one?
No, not really. I just, I guess, kind of shocked that it happened to Rutgers. Kind of thought Rutgers was kind of a score at will team up until this point. So that was the biggest note for me. But excited to see both these teams play more, to be honest.
Yeah. All right. With that, let's move on. We'll take USC Minnesota here. I know you said you wanted
let's
to
do it.
mention this one a little bit. Yeah.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's hard not to. I know I've kind of been big on Minnesota, big on Brosmer.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if they're back on track
Maybe.
after this win. Well, okay, and so the only reason why I say that is because Miller Moss threw 2 touchdowns, and I feel like Miller Moss usually looks pretty cool, and up until that fourth quarter, didn't look kind of as cool as a cucumber as he usually is.
We might have jinxed him.
I mean,
Hate to say it.
maybe maybe we did. Maybe, I mean, we're still a Miller Moss podcast.
Yeah.
We can't move away from that. He's still a guy that we'd love to see, but I'm just more excited to see Minnesota back on track. And dude, Brosmer is a freaking locker room like engine, dude.
Yeah.
That kid's pure diesel. Just like anytime anyone gets like 2 or 3 yards on like gritty plays, he's just like he's going for high fives. He's going crazy.
The
Like,
way they surrounded him after that touchdown was funny.
yeah, it was. It was. So I mean,
he's
like,
muscling his way through there, and they're all like surrounded him. I mean,
mhm.
yeah,
And so like I'm all for it. PJ Fleck, good win by PJ Fleck to beat out Lincoln Riley there.
hmm
He can add that to his long list of teams he probably didn't think he'd be beating.
hmm
But yeah, they knocked off a number 11 team in the country.
yeah,
More so, they got their first conference win.
yep, yeah. Good for them. It was kind of a tough start to the year. Lost to Floyd Rosedale. Came back in a
Mm,
big way, and it was a comeback too. They were down 17-10, 10 minutes to go in
yeah,
that game, and led a long
right.
touchdown drive. Got another crucial interception, and then we've gone on about PJ Fleck, but when you're in a close game like that versus a team that's 11th in the country that you weren't expected to beat or anything like that, that's when you need to play aggressive, and the ball's on him to go for it on fourth down with 55 seconds there, and trust your quarterback, give him the rock. Just you got a couple inches to go, and just get me in there and take me home, and stood
Make it
by that,
happen.
and
Yeah.
yeah, Brosmer made it happen, and they were hyped about that. So that's a fun one for sure. USC, you know, when these teams were announced to be coming to the Big Ten, there was a lot of jokes about they're not ready. USC and Oregon, they're not ready to come to the Midwest in October and November like that, and they saw firsthand why. Two times they've now lost when they've come into the Midwest. Lost to Michigan, lost to Minnesota now. So coming out east is not kind for them so far.
USC is feeling it.
Yeah, and a good win for Minnesota. Anything else with that one?
No, not really. I'm just saying I think they're back on track with a question mark. So maybe they're back on track.
Okay, and we'll break it down. They played this weekend. We'll break that down later in the show.
Yeah, yeah. But this last game we had for the week, if you're ready to get into it,
One
last
more.
year's national
One more.
championship. Oh,
One more.
what were we missing?
Michigan, Washington.
Oh, that's what I was going to talk about.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, no, you're good. No, yeah, we're talking this because it was the night game, the Michigan Washington.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, last year's national championship, right?
indeed. The
Yeah,
rematch,
but
long
and
awaited.
I know it was and I know it was a rematch, and I know also you especially have talked about how two totally different
hmm
rosters and new teams, and it kind of showed. Um, More so, I think we kind of, or not we, the AP poll in America was starting to kind of buy in too early to the Michigan wins,
hmm
and that came to show. Will Rogers threw for 271 yards, 2 touchdowns. When he's on, he's on.
Yep. I in my notes I put great day from him, and
Hmm.
Washington came through and kind of he led the way there. They were favored to win
Yeah,
this game. I know we talked about that last week. That I was a little surprised
yeah,
by
that's
that,
true.
and
Right, it was like
Vegas
two and a
knows
half.
2.5. Yeah, and Vegas knows. Um, and then on the Michigan side of the ball, under center, third starter of the year, Jack Tuttle came out there. He did play well, 10 for 18, only 98 yards as they're definitely a run first team this year so far, but
Yeah,
had a touchdown and a pick. Um, but turnovers seem to be the difference. They had two, and Washington outgained them on the ground by like 150 yards. So, I mean, Washington really controlled this game and got revenge from national championship back in January. Like you said, and like I've said, two different teams, but there are guys in the locker room that are the same, and a lot of the Washington players for sure wanted to take care of business in that one. So good for them.
definitely good for them.
I
And
know.
I know a lot of kids went and, like kind of stormed the field
Mhm.
after that one. So that's probably gotta feel good.
Yeah, and a big first like marquee win for new head coach Jed Fish there in Seattle.
Hmm.
And they had that tough loss in the Apple Cup a few weeks ago, so getting a big win like that in the Big Ten really's got to make you feel good. This one opens up a lot of question marks, I think, with the middle of the Big Ten. I mean, Michigan, like you said, the AP poll and people had bought into them. They're a top 10 team, only had that loss to Texas. But them
Yep.
losing this game, USC losing that game, and then you have Indiana still winning. I mean, you got Ohio State and Oregon, and we'll talk about that one later.
Yep.
As that's going to be all the talk going into this weekend. But then after that, it is wide open. Penn State up there too, I
Totally.
suppose. But there's maybe 8 teams that are in this middle tier of the Big Ten that I think you could hit shuffle on them, and that's the order. Best to worst, and hit shuffle a different way, and that's the order there. So,
Yeah.
who
Any
knows
given
at this
Saturday.
point? Exactly. That's all I had for this one. You had any closing thoughts on that one or the rest of the games this past week?
No, I mean, we can get into these next ones if you're good for it. I'm looking forward to this Friday night game.
Yeah, absolutely. Do a quick standings update though.
Yeah,
Um,
let's do it.
Still have 4 undefeated teams left in the Big Ten: Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, respectively 2, 3, and 4 in the polls this week. They're all 5-0 and 2-0 in conference play, and then Indiana, number 18 this week in the poll, 6-0. One of
Uh,
the first teams to be bowl eligible. Huge start for them, and 3-0 in conference. They keep winning; they'll catch up in the polls. I think just some of that poll inertia early in the season. Middle of the conference, we got Washington, Nebraska, Michigan, all at 2-1. Um, Illinois, Rutgers, Iowa, and Wisconsin, all at 1-1.
yep.
Minnesota, USC, Michigan State, 1-2. USC at 1-2 and 3-2 on the season is not where I think a lot of the country expected them to be right now.
Yeah.
But there they
Number
are.
11 team, definitely not.
Yeah, and falling out of the rankings after a tough loss like that definitely has got a sting. And then Maryland, Northwestern, Purdue, and UCLA are all 0-2, or in UCLA's case, 0-3, still looking for that first conference win. Someone's got to bring up the rear, and that would be them right now, unfortunately. So there's a look at the standings. Picture's starting to shape up a little bit. It'll shape up even more after week 7, if you want to kick us off Friday night.
Yeah, we'll kick off Friday night. So, I mean, like you said, I mean, just going through standings, just so everyone's aware, everyone's played at least 2 conference games
Mm-hmm.
now. So, I mean, I think it's fair to start to really point out these teams and understand where that top pack is, and kind of like you said, where kind of that middle 8 are.
Yep.
But another game that and this Friday night game will kind of help us with that. It's a Maryland home game. Northwestern's going out to Maryland for this one, going out to College Park. Matchup predictor already has Maryland winning this at 87%.
Mm-hmm.
They're favored by 10.5 points. And I think like the week off for Maryland probably is good, especially after playing like 4 or 5 games. These are when guys really start to get those nagging injuries and hurt. And so having
Mm-hmm.
like a bye week last week probably really helped. And I think it's going to help guys like Felton have really good days. Hopefully, I've been high on him in the past, and I
Mm-hmm.
really want to see Maryland kind of keep climbing. So I'm going to take Maryland on this one. Curious what you have to say about it.
Spread's 10.5. You take them on 10.5 too, or just the win?
I think they can win by 2 touchdowns. Honestly,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd take 10.5 is more than fair, and not just because of the past things we've seen from Northwestern, but Curtis Rourke can get it done. When you got weapons, offensive weapons, stuff can happen, and Maryland's got some offensive weapons.
They do. Absolutely. And I like them to win this game too. Um, Last week was kind of a dud compared to some of these Friday night games. I like this one to be a close one, so I won't take them on the spread. I'll take
Okay.
Northwestern plus 10.5. But I think Maryland pulls this one out, and we see some fireworks out there in College Park. Um, these are 2 teams kind of in that bottom half right now, but can easily turn their seasons around. And I think Northwestern kind of thrives off of being the underdog sometimes. They were last year, all
Totally.
year, and I think 10.5. They'll see that as some disrespect. Hang in it till late, but Maryland pulls this one out.
Okay. So both going Maryland on the Friday night. You're gonna think it's gonna be a little bit closer. I guess I'm all for watching it, watching a close game on Friday nights. But um,
Do you go to
I
your high
think
school
that
game this week? Or you
I
guys
don't
stay
know.
home
I
for
hope
this one?
so. How many games you got left? Hopefully, homecoming's happened, or if not, homecoming's coming up. You
Yeah.
guys figure that out. Get rowdy for that, but I don't know. We'll leave that up to the player's choice.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So Friday night's up to you guys. I think Saturday though is going to be a good one to watch. can we just get into the 11 o'clock game, the game
Yeah,
we
big
want to talk
noon.
about?
Absolutely.
So Washington, Iowa.
Yep.
Um, Iowa favored at 2.5 points right now. That's kind of crazy after watching what just happened with
It's a
Michigan
toss
and
up.
everything.
That's that home
Um,
advantage. That's a toss up.
it's the
That's the
Kinnick. It's
Vegas
yeah.
trap. That's the Vegas trap
No,
right there. Yeah.
okay. You're probably right, honestly. And it's probably gonna get a lot of people.
Yeah.
But two big things I want to talk about. One, can we as a coaching staff, can we as like a program trust Cade to get us back on track? I really want to give him like the benefit of the doubt. I feel like sometimes it's like way too close of like a poll or too early of a poll on these guys.
Hmm.
Two, can we get Caleb Johnson started early so he can just get more touches and over time get his looks, because he's going to get his looks, right? But the more comfortable he gets, I felt like last week he never really found a groove the way he has in the first couple of weeks, especially the first 4 weeks.
Hmm.
I want to see him back on track.
I agree with you. I think this is a pretty defining game for both these teams, actually. Um,
Yeah.
I think going into this season, a lot of Iowa fans, myself included, were like, this Washington game, you knew who they were last year. So if you're kind of not in the know, that looks like a tough game. But knowing who they had lost and what was kind of expected of them this year, I think I looked at this game as like, I think we can safely chalk that one up as a W at this point after last week, them knocking off Michigan and looking like a pretty good team. I think I'm a little bit more nervous about this one as an Iowa fan. And I think it feels like a lot better of a win if Iowa does take care of this one. And then if you're Washington, already mentioned, knock off Michigan. Iowa has a good team year in, year out, and it's kind of that definitive Big Ten style of play where if you come out to Iowa City this week and knock them off, you're like, hey, we can hang in the Big Ten. We thought we
Yep.
could.
Yep.
No expectations that they couldn't have or shouldn't have. But with the question marks kind of surrounding this team to get off to a 5-2 start, with a couple of Big Ten wins really gets them feeling good. I agree with you. I think get Caleb Johnson going, see if K can turn it around. I think the other big thing is pressure on the quarterback. Will Rogers can make big plays.
Yep.
And
Yep.
if Iowa's defensive line can pressure him in a way that they really couldn't get to Will Howard, I think that could be one of the game changers in this game. And then just relying on your secondary if the line can't get there. They had a big pick last Saturday, and really asking that secondary to step up and stop Will Howard a little bit when he's starting to get hot, and he will at some point.
Yeah, totally. A four-quarter game, he can get hot.
Mm-hmm.
Linebacker Jay Higgins for Iowa. I honestly thought he had like a pretty good game last
He did. He had a
week
great
against
game.
Ohio State.
That's
Yeah,
NFL.
so I
That's
mean,
NFL combine tape right there. His first half
for
versus Ohio
real. To
State.
be honest, there's probably scouts across the country doing that. Man, maybe we should put him on the whiteboard on some X and O's action. But so yeah, like let's keep seeing stuff like him lead our defense, and like you said, kind of the secondaries and the DBs. Stay in front of guys, we'll be okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting here, both these teams lost their kind of home rivalry game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Washington lost to Washington State in their second week, and in Iowa's second week they dropped the ball to Iowa State. So both teams with one less trophy in their case this year than they already wish. We'll see. We'll see.
Let's bring a trophy out for this one.
You
Both
think
teams are going to be
that
hungry. Let's start a trophy
you think
game.
this is a trophy game? You think there should be a trophy game?
No.
Potential future trophy game?
Maybe. It was a couple, I know these teams met each other back in the 80s a couple times at the Rose Bowl. There's a little bit of history there. It's been a while. That's years ago. I think Washington won both of those games too. One of them was the drop pass. Iowa could have won it and then didn't. But start a new rivalry maybe. We'll see.
Well, here's a first chance, and like you said, honestly, good implications for both teams. Knocking off Iowa would look good for Washington. Iowa beating Washington at home might look even better, to be honest. So looking forward to it. Hoping the Hawks win this one. Could go either way, but we're rooting for the Hawks.
Yep. I'll take them on 2.5 just for the homer pick. Our other 11 o'clock game this weekend, Wisconsin going on the road to Rutgers.
Mm-hmm.
This is another Vegas trap. Rutgers only favored by 2.5 at home, so it's a toss-up either way. Who do you think's hot kind of in this one? I like Wisconsin in this one. Like I said earlier, I think with my shout out on Kekuna, I think just having that game where you see that what you're trying to do is working gives you so much confidence. And if they can get some throws in, that air raid starts raiding, I think they can come out with the win on this one. And Rutgers kind of start raiding.
Start looting.
Yep. Raid Shadow Legends football style for the Badgers. Not a paid ad. We're just fans.
Okay, yeah. It was on the sticks. Dude, no, I was going to have to pick Rutgers until this past week. Honestly, watching Wisconsin put up 52. And so, like, they're averaging over 30 points a game now scored. Their offense. They can put up points. And watching Rutgers kind of be stifled by the Nebraska defense, what makes me think that the Wisconsin defense isn't going to do the same thing and rinse and repeat in Rutgers? Honestly, the Rutgers hype might be starting to die out. That Central Jersey heat might be starting to cool off, unfortunately. And we'll see if Wisconsin can do that. But I'm going with Wisconsin on this one as well.
Yeah. That'll be a fun one, too. So make sure you're flipping back and forth at 11 o'clock there.
I think one other...
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I guess, sorry. Just one other thing. Especially Rutgers, prove me wrong. If we can get Monangai started here, you can win any game on your schedule when he gets started and when that running back room gets cooking. But when a good defense and then when a good defensive line starts to slow that down, and when he came and get like over 100 yards in a game, that leaves me questioning things. That's all.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's the same story with Iowa that we kind of talked about.
Yeah,
these guys that or these teams that rely on their running backs to be the guy for them.
Right.
Got to get in the rock, get them moving, and it opens everything else up for you. So yeah, with that, let's move on to the 2:30 CBS slot in the afternoon there. This is a big one. Looked a lot bigger last week at this time, but still a big one as Penn State goes all the way out to LA and takes on USC at the Coliseum. Penn State is favored 5.5 in this one and up to number 4 this week. And like I said earlier, they're not flashy, but they just grind you out and get it done. And that's what both the USC's losses here this season are kind of games where they got ground down and worn out by the time that fourth quarter came around. Saw Michigan with that 9-minute or whatever drive in the fourth quarter a few weeks ago.
Right.
Minnesota, a couple late picks and grinding out some drives and getting 2 scores on in the fourth. So I like Penn State to do the same in this one. And given they're a little bit better team than some of those, this one might be wrapped up by the end of the third quarter. Penn State walks out of the Coliseum and gets a nice, comfortable flight home. What do you think on this one?
I think I'm right there with you. To be honest, I wish I wasn't. I wish it was going to be a little bit more of a head-to-head matchup. And I think it's interesting that the ESPN tracker or whatever I checked earlier has them USC 51.
They do actually. I didn't look at
Penn
that.
State 48. Yeah, so
FPI 48 versus 52% favorite to USC.
Nuts, right? Have we been watching a different Penn State team than everyone else in the country? Especially with Miller Moss this past week, and how the wheels kind of fell off. And I hate saying it like that, but just like a 4-quarter game, if you don't have the endurance and if a good defense can start to get those picks and turnovers and things like that. And we're talking about Penn State, which, I mean, we both have kind of given nods that they might be the best defense in the conference right now. Hard to say they're not a top 2, and so it doesn't matter that they're going on the road. They're gonna have a hefty win. I think not. I don't think the 5.5 spread makes any sense either. I think Penn State will probably get this done by at least 2 scores. They've won every game by at least 2 scores, minus that one game that when they played Bowling Green.
Yeah, and even that game, the score was a little bit deceiving. They kind of controlled that game. It never felt really as close as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing, so I didn't know about the FPI predictor there until you mentioned that. And I looked and just saw some of Penn State's numbers. The one thing I could think of why that is the way it is that seems to favor like production and like efficiency a lot of time in their algorithm of how they calculate that. And Penn State has not necessarily had to have the offensive production and efficiency because they haven't needed to, because that defense can control games. So I think maybe that's hurting them. A positive is really a con with how this is calculated. But I trust a guy like Drew Aller to make plays if he really has to step up in this game. This is their first really big test. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's a test that they'll pass. I think all the pieces are there for them to, at least roll late into the season and be a top 5 team. And they definitely have Big Ten title aspirations.
So that'll be a fun one.
Yep.
The other game going on at that same time on Fox Sports or FS1, the return of Luke Allmeyer in the Illinois Fighting Illini.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be another field day for Illinois. They're hosting Purdue, and the matchup predictor for this one makes a little bit more sense. 92% Illinois, 8% Purdue.
Yep. The only
not really
question,
much to say.
Yeah, the only question is if they cover 19.5, which is the way Purdue's looked in some of these games. 19.5 looks a little light, the way they've gotten blown out. Illinois got that week off, well rested, after playing a team like Penn State and playing them close a couple weeks ago for most of that game. I think they'll be rested and win by a few scores. I'll take them to cover that 19.5. And yeah, I agree with you. Not much to say outside of that.
Not much to say. I am looking forward to watching Pat Bryant get back out there and the rest of those wide receivers. Could be fun.
I played a game.
I really hate.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it really sucked to be at Purdue and have like over 100 points scored on you in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
but, that very well could happen.
Yeah, so Pat Bryant, I just want to say I played a game at NCAA the other day as Army. Okay. Got the triple option running. You know how it goes. Okay. Versus Illinois. Pat Bryant tore me up a few times. I think he had like 200 yards. He was like every time the ball was being thrown, I'm like, is it Pat Bryant? You see that number 13? I'm like, again? And so
even the game knows.
Even the game knows. See if he can back it up on the field this week. He probably will, like we're saying. So with that, let's move on. The big one this week. We've been looking forward to it. We've referenced it enough times by now. Let's jump right into it.
The killer whale, 2 O's. You can't get 2 more O's in college football than this, honestly.
You put next to each other, it's gonna have us saying, "Ooh, this is some Big Ten ball." Ooh, baby.
This is some football. Yes, sir. We got Ohio State traveling out to Autzen Stadium to play the Oregon Ducks. I haven't seen what the Oregon Ducks are wearing this week yet. Not too worried about it, to be honest. I don't care what they wear this week. This game's going to be awesome, dude. Mm-hmm. This game's going to be really fun to watch for both sides. I'm excited to see the quarterback matchup here, see how Gabriel bounces back. I don't want to say bounces back from last week, I guess, but just kind of starts to continue to hone in and be more efficient and be as proficient as possible here. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be exciting. I want to know what you think about this first off.
I don't know who to pick to win this game. I'm going to go with my gut on this one, which is Ohio State. And maybe that's a spoiler.
Yeah.
But just because how I'm feeling about this one, I'm excited. This is game of the season so far. This one, when the Big Ten schedules came out, people were already marking their calendars for this one. And I hope it delivers. That's the one thing. I mean, I pick Ohio State to win. If it's a blowout either way, that's no fun. Like, this one for the ESPN Instant Classic here is what we're hoping for.
Totally.
It's the biggest test of the season for both these teams. They've kind of ramped up as their season's gone on. Ohio State having to square out versus that Iowa D. Michigan State kind of a rising team like that. That's a test for Oregon, but this is where the rubber meets the road. And maybe the first of a couple meetings this year for these teams, but how the rest of the season shakes out. But I'm excited for this one. I'll take Ohio State. They're favored by 3, even on the road. I don't even know if I like him to pick. This game screams 42-41 with some shenanigans in there or something like that. Just a nail biter that Ohio State pulls out.
Oh,
Who do you like in
totally.
this one?
Do you know who I like is every single wide receiver: Tez Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, Egbuka, Smith. I mean, even Quinshon Judkins might get some looks. I mean, who knows? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be kind of an all out day, kind of like you said. It could be a high scoring game. This would be for first place. And it might be in some people's mind for first place in not only the country but in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have to give that nod to Indiana being at the 6-0, being a week ahead of everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You can't knock them off, right? So, um, number two, number three in the country, really the most exciting game maybe we've had in the past couple of weeks of college football
Yeah.
to look forward to. And I don't really know which way to go either. I want to go with Oregon. I really hate Ohio State. Like, if we're if we're being honest, I mean, I like they're great, but like everything about the Buckeyes, I can't stand. So I want to go Oregon, and I think I'm going to for the sake of it. Especially because they're home. I'd like to see the Ducks fly a little more quack quack. But that all starts with Dylan Gabriel, I think, this week. Dylan Gabriel, uh, awesome coaching matchup too, with Ryan Day going out there. Two coaches who have really started to become kind of like the face of their programs,
Yeah.
and had a lot on the line. So this would be a good win for either of their resumes as they continue. The other game, as we were talking about earlier, that recruiting battle.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're both struggling to pick a winner in this. I think the one winner, no matter how this game shakes out, is NBC. This is what they paid big money
Oh,
for. These Saturday night games.
yes,
NBC
sir.
is licking their chops. It's the only Big Ten game on. I don't know what's going. I don't care what's going on around the country, other conferences. It doesn't matter who's playing at 6:30. This is the game to watch. That's what
Hmm.
Big Ten's getting, like billion point three, 1.3 billion or whatever it is TV contract just for the games like this. Um, and
And there were some other big games this week that looked really exciting. I think just after the crazy week of shakedowns,
yeah,
there's less. I mean, I know Texas Oklahoma is coming up, and we talked about Penn State USC. Um, but this is probably game of the day.
absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, this will be
Well,
fun, and I can't wait to break this one down next week. I think we'll have to wait a little bit into the show. We try to go chronologically, but depending on how this one goes,
yeah,
we might have to just open up with this one. So,
yeah.
um,
If it how it goes.
yep. All right, we got one more though to cover this week. Don't want to leave the late games out. I am loving these really late night games though that we're starting to get in
It's
the Big
awesome.
Ten now. This 8 o'clock kickoff.
Hmm.
The Oregon Ohio State kicks off at 6:30. So probably going to be tuned into that one. But that one wraps up. You still got like a second half of football to watch out at the Rose Bowl. Minnesota and the Golden Gophers after that big win versus USC gets to take on the other LA team, a 1-4 UCLA team that's kind of struggling to find themselves. I'm gonna make a prediction. I think you probably like Minnesota in this one. Am I off base with
Yeah,
that?
yeah, I mean, no, you are on track with that,
Yep.
and maybe I don't have too much of a poker face to hide, but the reality is UCLA's just kind of struggled this year.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the start that they were hoping for in the conference, and it would be really good if they could pull a win out here. I mean, Minnesota is not bulletproof by any means. They're 3-3. They lost to Iowa. They lost to Michigan in that crazy game,
Hmm.
but they can lose games. The bigger thing here is the only game that UCLA's won was the Hawaii game, and that was
Mm,
16-13. So when does the UCLA train leave the station? I don't know,
yeah.
but Minnesota's coming out there. They row the freaking boat. Brosmer is just like juiced to the max. He's just, dude. He's like he kind of reminds me of Drew Brees, just kind of the way he's just like ready to go. You
Uh-huh.
know what I mean? He's just like old school Drew Brees, and maybe not the play style by any means, but just
The
the
attitude.
intensity.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I like to see it. I think they cover the 5.5. And this is why I think that we can say they're back on track. I want to take that question mark and change it to an exclamation point next week for the Golden Gophers.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think Minnesota takes care of business in this one and probably covers that 5.5. On the other hand, to give UCLA some of their credit, if they win this one, I think that removes maybe one of the three question marks that's next to their name of just like, hey, you got a Big
Hmm.
Ten win on your resume. Kind of get that monkey off your back that you can compete. You're here, and just move on with the rest of your season. Despite that, I do like Minnesota. And this one's gonna be on. We're in the Midwest, like Central Time Zone. What's good game's gonna be on midnight? We're gonna be watching a fourth quarter, which I think is just a
True.
lot of fun. So, with that, that's all the games this week. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and we posted some polls and some stories, and letting you stay up to date on what's going on around the Big Ten this week. Any closing thoughts?
Biggest thing is we're gonna have to tune in for those late games. It is an exciting Saturday all the way around, and like you said, the Saturdays have only gotten longer in the Big Ten, which is
Mm-hmm.
super awesome. Um, but yeah, we're gonna have to hear from you guys, hear what you think we're calling wrong right now. I think I feel like we're calling a lot of these pretty right, and it's the only one that is tough is Ohio State, Oregon. But maybe you think Purdue's going to figure it out, and maybe you want to say that we're losing it. So let us know. I'd love to start that conversation. I know a couple Purdue fans out there who might hate what I have to say, but let me hear it.
Always got that Dick's Sporting Goods there in West Lafayette.
Oh yeah, and what is this episode 5? Maybe episode 10. We'll get around to that
Yeah,
story.
yeah. It's a good
We
one.
can only tease so long.
That's all I know. All right. And with that one, we'll
All
see you
right,
next week. Enjoy a big fun weekend of Big Ten football, and we'll get you up to speed next week. Till then, have a good
all
one.
right.
Bye.
Peace out.